All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fundamental question, and we're doing it through the lens of the Islamic text, Humanity, Life, and Divine Law. We're going to unpack its core arguments about what it really means to be human, and why that might just point towards a need for divine guidance.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the miracle of our own existence. Then we'll see how we stack up against the rest of the animal kingdom. After that, we'll pinpoint what the text says truly sets us apart. And finally, we'll dig into the argument for why a species like us might need a universal rulebook.
Okay, let's dive right in with our first section, the human miracle. The text we're exploring asks us to start not by looking out at the stars, but by looking inward, at the incredible universe we're all carrying around inside our own body. You know, if you ask that question, most of us immediately jumped to one answer: intelligence, right? But the source material we're looking at today asks us to hit the pause button on that and think about something far more basic, but maybe even more amazing: our own physical bodies. So the source we're digging into uses this really cool analogy. It says, think of your body like a vast, silent factory. It suggests that if you wanted to build a machine to do everything your body's doing right now, you'd need a facility covering 4 square miles, making the noise of 100 trains. And yet, our bodies do all this completely silently. And get this, that connection to the world around us goes right down to our chemical makeup. As you can see, we're made of the same basic stuff as the Earth itself. About 60% of our body is just water. The text even points out that our bones, which you'd think are totally solid, are actually 25% water. So check out this number. Back in 2004, which is the year our source material is referencing, the world population was 6.4 billion. But here's the crazy part the book makes. Out of all those billions of people, you can't find 2 faces, 2 body odors, or 2 fingerprints that are exactly the same. And this is where the text brings it all back to faith. It points out that this incredible uniqueness, this detail right down to our very fingertips, is actually mentioned in the Quran. It's presented there as proof of a deliberate, meticulous creation. Okay, so we're incredibly complex, totally unique, got it. But what if life is just about physical strength, survival of the fittest? How do we really stack up against the animal kingdom? Well, the answer might just humble you a little bit. All right, let's take jumping. A grasshopper, it can leap more than 200 times its own body length. The source actually did the math on this. If we could do that, it'd be like jumping 400 meters in a single go. 400. We can't even get close. Or how about a butterfly? I mean, they seem so delicate, right? But they can fly in any direction. Up, down, backwards. The text talks about a certain moth that can find a mate from, get this, 11 kilometers away, just with its sense of smell. Our senses are just not even in the same league. And building? Don't even get me started. The source says, let's compare what we build to a termite mound. If we built our skyscrapers to the same scale relative to our size, they'd have to be 1,000 stories high. It's pretty clear. Physically, we're outmatched on almost every single front. So, if we're not the strongest or the fastest or the most sensitive, what is our advantage? What makes us different? Well, the text argues it all boils down to 2 specific, non-physical superpowers that set us apart from every other living thing on this planet. This timeline really says it all, doesn't it? A beehive from thousands of years ago is exactly the same as a beehive today. Animals work on pure instinct. Their world doesn't really change. But us? We have gone from simple huts to carrying supercomputers around in our pockets. The change is just staggering. And this is what the source calls our first superpower, intellect, or in the term used in the text, buddhi shakti. This is our engine for change. It's the reason someone from the 19th century would be completely baffled by our world today. That ability to build on knowledge, to progress, that's all us. But intellect is only half the picture. There's a second power the source says is absolutely crucial. It's called Ikhtiyar, and it basically means free will. It's our power to choose, to actually go against our most basic instincts like hunger or self-preservation. And to show just how powerful this is, the text tells this really famous story from the Hadith. Picture this, 3 soldiers, all dying of thirst on a battlefield.
The first one gets a cup of water, but he passes it to the second soldier, thinking his friend needs it more. The second does the same, passing it to the third. By the time the water gets there, all three have died. That choice to put others before yourself, even when it means death, that's the ultimate example of Ikhtiyar. An animal, driven by instinct, just wouldn't do that. And that right there brings us to the heart of the whole argument. This amazing, incredible freedom to choose, it's our greatest power. But the source argues it's also our biggest problem. I mean, if you can choose to do anything, how on earth do you decide what you should do?
Well, first, the text points out that our free will has its limits. Think about it. You didn't choose to be born. You didn't pick your parents or your genetics. You don't choose to get sick. And in the end, you don't choose when you die. All these huge, life-defining things are completely out of our hands, which kind of suggests we aren't the ultimate bosses of our own lives.
So this leads to a really important analogy in the text, which you can see laid out here. The logic goes like this. If we don't have total control, then we can't be the owners of our bodies. We're more like users. And if we're the users, then the one who designed and created us is the real owner. And just like any good designer, that owner is the one who provides the user manual. So what happens if everyone just ignores the manual? The text argues it would be total chaos. Imagine it. Billions of people all just doing whatever they feel like, making up their own rules as they go. It would be a disaster. And that's why, for society to even work, a single universal higher law isn't just a nice idea. It's presented as absolutely necessary. And this is where the very word Islam comes into play. In this specific context, it's not just presented as a religion's name, but as a verb, an action. It's the act of consciously and willingly aligning your own free will with the rules and guidance of that creator, the true owner. Now, this act of submission, according to the source, isn't just a vague feeling. It's built on these core beliefs you see here, the articles of faith. This is the bedrock, the essential framework for the entire worldview we're exploring, which leaves us right here with the big question that this whole line of reasoning has been building up to. The argument has been laid out. We're special not because of our muscles, but because of our minds and our freedom to choose. So, given that incredible and, let's be honest, potentially chaotic power of free will, who should write the rules? Should it be us with all our conflicting desires? Or should it be the one who designed us in the first place? That's the question the text leaves us with, a question it argues is at the very heart of what it means to be human.